President's guidance is a great step forward. I have a bill. There are other bills that have been filed. We're going to be working across the aisle, not to repeal the Affordable Care Act, not to defund the Affordable Care Act, not to undermine the Affordable Care Act, not to gut the Affordable Care Act, but to fix it.
And that's how you know it's not working. That was Mary Landrieu, senator from Louisiana, saying, good start, Mr. President, but we need more. This is Power Play, and you need more. So we have brought for you, seated next to me is Gretchen Hamel. Accurate. Hi, Gretchen.
Hi.
We describe you as a former spokesperson. No, you're a former spokeswoman for the, no, we don't. We do things correctly here, as much as I'm able. The former spokeswoman for the House Republican Conference. And you are, describe your group quickly.
So Public Notice is an independent nonprofit that explains economic issues to the American public.
Helps people understand about why debt is not good.
Yeah.
Julie Roginsky is good. She is the former communications director for John Corzine. She is a Fox News contributor, and she came and saw us in person in Washington recently.
I miss you guys.
You miss us already, no doubt.
I do. It's only been 2 weeks.
But it just seems so long. Okay, so Julie, moderate Democrats, we talked in the first segment about liberals that are concerned that the president means what he said. We have moderate Democrats who say they're concerned he doesn't mean what he said and that the administrative change that he has proposed is not going to do enough to protect them electorally. What's the play?
Well, I think for these Democrats that voted for the Affordable Care Act, anything they do now to run away from it is not going to help them politically because, you know, remember the whole John Kerry thing? I was for it before I was against it and how that came and haunted him. Sort of the same kind of thing. Look, we as the Democratic Party own the Affordable Care Act. It is ours whether it goes down or whether it becomes a raging success. So I think it's in the interest of every Democrat on the Hill who's up for re-election next year, who voted for it in the first place, and all of them did in the Senate.
They sure did. Show enough.
To essentially embrace it and try to make sure it's a success, because if they run away from it now, there's no way the Republican opponents are going to allow them to do that anyway. They might as well own it.
Gretchen, we'll call that the REO Speedwagon approach, the riding the storm out. We're going to take that. So Julie's got the riding the storm out, but you hear from Joe Manchin, you hear from Mary Landrieu. This is sort of the moment that they've been waiting for their entire Senate careers, which is when the door is open and the White House is forced to talk about doing deals.
Exactly. And you have to think back to 2010. So many of these House Democrats were forced to basically walk a plank. They voted for the Affordable Health Care Act. They then got voted out of office. Here you have a lot of vulnerable senators that are up. The balance could go to tip to Republicans this next year. And I think you're going to see them break against the White House on this. They already have with bills they're going to vote against because at the end of the day,
people like to keep their jobs.
Well, they like to keep their jobs, but they're going to feel like they were misled, like the public was misled.
Well, now, wait a minute.
You could keep your plan before we found out.
Hold on a second. They had a vote, Julie, and Julie will back me up on this. They had a vote in the United States Senate on the Mike Enzi, whatever, I don't know whether it was an amendment, but the Republicans were able to force a vote on essentially this. Way back in 2010, Mike Enzi said, the senator from Wyoming, said, if you like it, you can keep it. Let's make it part of the law. Every Democrat voted against it. And I, Julie, find disingenuous all of these Democrats, and Kay Hagan from North Carolina just got nailed on this, to your point, that are like, I am shocked to find out that individual insurance plans are being canceled under this law. That's part of the design of the law. It won't work unless you take out those policies. Yeah,
you know, I'm going to put my political consultant hat on for a second and say to these guys, I'm going to rock it like I own it, and they should rock it like they own it too, because here's the problem for what they're doing right now. They can't run around saying, I'm shocked, you know, there's gambling going on in Casablanca, when in reality, they all voted, not Joe Manchin because he wasn't there at the time, but the rest of them all voted.
But he said he was for it.
Right, all voted for this legislation. Now they're all up, you know, as I said before, concerned about their reelection. Well, I'll tell you something. If you're a halfway decent Republican opponent to Mary Landrieu or to Kay Hagan, to any of these people, what's going to end up happening is you're going to say, wait a second, you own this piece of legislation and now you're running away from it. You were for it before you were against it, and you can't run away from it. So I would say to them, and it's in their interest, to strengthen this legislation, to make sure that we get this website under control, to make sure that this becomes a bigger enrollment process, to make sure that come March there are large numbers of Americans enrolled in Obamacare, because if there's not, and if this legislation is undermined by the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party, the Democratic Party is going to own it next November anyway. They're all going to go down anyway. They might as well ride it out and hope it's a success.
Get something out of the deal. Get something out of the deal.
Yeah.
Well, all right, so Gretchen, in July, they had a vote in the House on delaying the penalties imposed by the IRS for individuals who do not purchase insurance, which very few people have really thought this through. And if you think this is creating a stink, where till you get to that one? But they had a vote. 35 House Democrats defied a White House veto, defied Nancy Pelosi, et cetera, to go vote with Republicans on that. That was a different time in the sense that the law was in better odor, the president's numbers were better, but also it was less consequential.
Yes.
What's your guess for how many Democrats are going to go with this Upton bill today?
I mean, they're in a really bad situation today, and I think it will send a signal one way to the White House, whether they're with them or they're going to, be thinking of themselves and for themselves politically. I mean, and going with what she just said, you got to own your previous votes. Those 35 are going to have to own their previous votes. So they are probably going to have to go with them. But at the end of the day, this is basically putting politics above the American people and trying to get through 1 year of keeping your plan like it is. We
don't call it Washington for nothing. Internet, you have been entertained, edified, and been able to gaze upon loveliness here. Oh. What more could you want from one single segment? From Julie and Gretchen, ladies, we thank you for making time for us today. We have less loveliness, but more excellence still rolling ahead in here in the Bat Cave this Friday. So stay with us. Stick around.